All right, let's settle down. So great seeing all the faces again. Thank you for being here today, ladies and gents. A cold morning, but a beautiful morning. Thanks to our host, Ctrack, coloring this event in as usual with splendor. And we really appreciate what Ctrack is doing for us and for the transport community. It's such an important role they've been playing. My name is Harry. I've been running the Transport Forum, being the custodian for more than 18 years. We started doing this in this current format from March 2007. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because the company Ctrack was instrumental to the compilation and formation and whatever you would like to say of this very Transport Forum. We really appreciate what they've been doing. And it's an honor being hosted by them today. So let's give Ctrack a big hand. Ladies and gents, take note that we've got audiences online. We've got the YouTube audience and we've got the Zoom audience online. Once in a while, you might hear some sounds. It's just people unmuting and we will mute again, all that normal stuff. But I think we all nowadays used to the virtual world we live in. And it's quite exciting, actually. So later on, I'm talking to the online audience. Later on, at the end of the session, we'll have time for questions and answers. And the online audience will also be allowed to ask questions. We're not going to take questions after the presentations, as it takes up too much time every time to do that. We will do that at the end of the event. So today is the 5th of June, 2025. It's the 277th Transport Forum event, for interesting sake. And we're talking data to enable the power to predict. Yeah, important thing, housekeeping, ladies and gents, sorry about that. The restrooms, when you exit that door, you're actually walking straight into the restrooms. You just to the wall and to the right, and you'll find the restrooms there. Sorry for not mentioning that. But yes, so data to enable the power to predict. And Ctrack actually compiled this program for us. And you can see it's so relevant in the world we live in. You can see the main focus areas. We're going to talk about the economy. We will have Elise Kruger. We'll have visibility, Craig Alexander. We'll look at compliance. We'll have Llewellyn Richardson. And then the next portion of our program, you see, we'll go to control, Christian Storm. And we'll have safety, Bradley Visagi. And then efficiency, Chantel van Heerden. So this is going to be very interesting. And you can see at the end then questions and answers. And there's some quite nice prizes you can win, including, so yes, one of the lucky draws, Electric Girl. And as published also, Ctrack is sponsoring that nice session with one of the Springboks. Thank you very much, Nicholas and you guys, for organizing this one for us. It's such great, something to look forward to. And then some other prizes that you might be the lucky winner for. Obviously, the carrot is to keep you to the end, but I think the content being presented today speaks for itself. I just want to give some recognition. Besides our platinum sponsor, Ctrack, we've got other valued sponsors of the Transport Forum as well. And on different levels, you can see in the top row there, we've got industry associates who are in a formal agreement with the Transport Forum, South African Association of Freight Forwarders, South African Express Parcels Association, South African Bus Operators Association, African Rail Industry Association, Safer Stops Association, Multimodal Inland Port Association, and International Women in Transport. They're in a formal agreement. Obviously, there are many other associations active at the Transport Forum as well, but these are in a formal agreement. The same with the media houses we're very proud of, Railways Africa, Freight News, Engineering News, and Focus on Logistics and Transport. And there you can see our gold sponsors. I'm not going to mention everybody, you can see them, and you can find the links, obviously, to all of these bodies on our website. They're all making this platform possible. And we've got, obviously, special sponsors today together with Ctrack. And what we're going to do now, we're going to have a little bit of fun. So I'm going to take the mobile camera and the microphone, and I'm going to approach our exhibitors there, and they're quickly going to introduce you guys to their companies. So bear with me, let's have some fun. Right, I'm approaching optics.
Morning, Harry. We are Optics. We are Ctrack's video telematics partner, and we help them with the power of prediction by providing video insights into their telematics data. And we're here today to talk about the combination of those two and what it does for the power for prediction and safety and innovation. Thanks so much.
Let's give optics a hand. Internet of Things integration.
Thanks, Harry. Yeah, we Internet of Things integration. We focus on enabling driver compliance management and asset management through some innovative products. I'm going to just pick one of them up. Little magnet connectors, and then little tags and asset management technology that we developed that goes into various assets in the vehicle to make sure the asset is present. And if it's removed, there's a notification sent about the removal of that particular asset. Thank you.
Thank you, Norman. Let's give them a hand. Standard Bank.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Virushka Govender. I'm a representative of the Standard Bank. I'm joined by my colleagues Llewellyn, Seppo, and Marina. Standard Bank has been in operation for over 162 years, and we have a presence in 20 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. The bank's purpose is Africa is our home, we drive her growth, and we do that by providing sustainable funding solutions. So please come and join us, have a chat to us. We look forward to it. Thank you.
Indeed, we do. Thank you, Standard Bank, gold sponsor. Now we've got Road Transport Management System.
Good morning, my name's Marina. We're just wanting to tell you that Standard Bank supports RTMS, which is one of the only standards that is SABS approved for the transport industry. It is a self-regulating standard, and most of our transporters that are involved with RTMS have an upper hand on those who are not. So just so you know that, please come and chat to us about those standards if you'd be interested. Thank you very much.
Thank you, RTMS. South African Bus Operators Association.
Good morning, I'm Rika van Eden from Sabawa. We are the voice of the bus and coach industry, and something that we really concentrate at the moment is our conference that's coming up on the 27th and 28th of August. And please come and see me if you would like to come and visit our conference and be a delegate, or come and join us.
Thank you, Sabawa. University of Johannesburg, gold sponsor.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Zukisa, and I'm with my colleague Reshina. We're from the Department of Transport and Supply Chain Management at the University of Johannesburg. We're looking forward to engaging with you with the programs that we are offering, from undergrad, postgrad to our online programs. And we're also looking forward to informing you about our fundraising golf day that is coming up, and this is towards contributing to our students' fees. So we're looking forward to engaging you regarding that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, UJ. Now we've got Boleng Bontle Consultant. as well as the Transport Forums Business Directory. Olga. Thank you, Olga.
Thank you, Harry. Morning, everyone. I'm Olga Mashilo from Buleng Consultant. Buleng Consultant, we deal with compliance from business compliance, business leads, and also researchers. However, I'm the administrator for the business directory, Transport Forum Business Directory, where you list your business for opportunities and also for access to events and everything that is happening, information that you need to know with regard to the transport industry. So come and visit our table to be able to be part of the Transport Business Directory. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga. Right, let me make my way back to my seat. Isn't it great having all these organizations supporting the Transport Forum, making this platform possible? Ladies and gents, yeah, the business directory that Olga mentioned, it's one of our BEE initiatives, completely outsourced to her. It's very popular. You can get your company listed there for only 450 rands per annum. It's not really money. And it's like a little web page you have on the Transport Forum's website. And, you know, obviously people can reach you through that. Very popular. And it's completely outsourced to a company. So the Transport Forum's website, transportseek.com. This website has got many visitors per month, more than 7,000 unique per month at least. That's where we upload all the content and the presentations, all complimentary. So the deal is that you need to log in should you want to download presentations. There are more than 900 presentations uploaded to this site over the past 18 years. So if you in any sense in research or anything you want to know what's going on in the transport sector, this is it. You can download, and people download these presentations by the thousands internationally. It's a very strong knowledge base. And but you need to log in. That's how we get your information. That's the deal. You download, we get your information, but we do everything according to POPI Act. So once you've logged in, then you can download the presentations for free, and logging is complimentary as well. Everything is complimentary. So once logged in, you go to events, you go to downloads on the menu. Simple as that. You've got a very simple search engine. You can either search by a topic or a date or whatever. You type in a top field and you press search. And when you select search, it will bring up obviously all the content, or you can go to category and you can select the date of the event, and it's search and will bring up all the presentations. So the presentations, for example, you see here today will be uploaded this evening. So by tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, you should be able to download all these presentations as well. So that's the great stuff about the website. Very busy and very popular. So that brings us back to our program for today. And we're now talking data to enable the power to predict. And I would like to introduce you to Anissa Naiker, the Managing Director of Ctrack. And she's going to do the first presentation, the opening address and welcome for us. The power to predict, setting the tone for data-enabled fleet management. Thank you very much, Anissa. Let's give her a big hand.
You. Good morning. It's a real privilege to welcome you to this event co-hosted by Ctrack and the Transport Forum. My name is Anissa Naiker, and I'm the Managing Director for Ctrack Middle East and Africa. My background has actually been in fleet management for more than 20 years. And over those years, I've worn many hats. But the one that I have most enjoyed has been that of decision maker. Being able to make the right decision can only be done when you have the relevant information in the palm of your hands. Understanding what good should look like. What's most exciting about being at Ctrack is now taking all of the years of experience and using that to sculpt what the future should look like in terms of fleet data, and sharing that with industry and with our customers. Thank you for taking the time to be here today and for wanting to be part of a conversation that I believe will shape the way we think about transport, technology, and the future. Data is now the new currency. Where we once relied on guesswork or delayed information, we now operate with real-time insights. Where reactive decision-making was the norm, we now operate with predictive foresight. And that's really the theme we want to explore today. Data that enables the power to predict. But what does the power to predict really mean? It means using the intelligence we gather from vehicles and peripheral devices to empower our customers to make better decisions, faster, smarter, and with more confidence. It means transforming raw data into actionable insight. And most importantly, it means enabling visibility, control, safety, efficiency, and compliance, the 5 keys of modern fleet management. Today, you'll hear from our partners and industry experts about how each of these 5 keys comes to life across various industries, from mining to long-haul transport, from security to technology partnerships. We hope that today's event leaves you inspired, informed, and energized about the potential of what data can achieve. Because in our world, data isn't just about knowing what happened, it's about knowing what's next. Please do take the opportunity to engage with the Ctrack team during the networking session. We would love to hear more about your businesses, what the pain points are, so we can help tailor solutions that are best suited for you. Thank you, and I look forward to meeting you and getting to know each of you better. And with that, please enjoy the Ctrack video. Thank you.
Every day, across our beautiful country, men and women set out before dawn, hands on the wheel, their hearts at home. They are the lifeblood of our economy. The crews, drivers, and teams connecting cities, towns, and our communities. Miners digging deep to power our progress. Farmers cultivating their fields to feed us. And builders constructing our infrastructure. It's the workers who serve the public that keep life moving forward. For 40 years, Ctrack has been on this journey with you. We make every road traveled safer and smarter with optimized efficiency. What started with humble tachographs grew into a global force spanning across Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and Australia. With Crystal, we take this legacy even further. Our AI-powered fleet asset management solution offers predictive insights and advanced analytics designed to adapt to businesses of any size. We evolve with your ambitions, unlock possibilities, and help you navigate challenges with confidence. The Ctrack team walks alongside you, taking time to understand your business and its needs. Our goal is to ensure that our solutions are customized to the dynamic clients we serve. Through powerful data analytics and clear, actionable insights, we transform uncertainty into opportunity, giving our customers the power to predict. Here's to 40 years of being on the road with you. 40 years of driving progress, building trust, and shaping the future. At Ctrack, we're just getting started.
Indeed. All right, Anissa, thank you so much for taking lead, and we're looking forward to spending the day with Ctrack. Ladies and gents, let's then start with the content. Our very first presenter then will be Elise Kruger. She's the independent economist. She's going to talk about the Ctrack Transport and Freight Index, macroeconomic trends shaping the industry. Thank you very much, Elise. Let's give her a hand.
Ashay, thank you very much, everybody. Good morning. Glad to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to share some economic thoughts with you today, and also to share the results of the latest Ctrack Transport and Freight Index. Okay, I'm going to touch a bit, or starting off with touching on the macroeconomic background. You know, context remains a very important factor when you speak about the economy. So as much as I want to say a few words about the transport sector, it's important to just start off with the bigger picture, being the global economy, and then I'll drill it down to the local economy and, you know, what's happening to the transport sector, and then especially what we've seen in the Ctrack Transport and Freight Index. So if I can start off with the globe, you know, this year has been, I would say, a volatile start to a year with what we've seen globally happening, especially relating to the US-Trump trade war that really started sort of early in the year, but getting momentum, you know, early in April. So already we've had, you know, geopolitical tensions and risks that, you know, everybody in the world had to deal with. And here I talk about things like the Russia-Ukraine war that's ongoing, the Palestine-Israel conflict. So there's already a lot of, I would say, risk in the global economy. And then on top of that, we were then, you know, presented by this evolving global trade war. Now, as we stand here, you know, every day you think you start to get a handle on what's going to happen to the global economy, just to wake up and to hear that, you know, Trump has changed his mind overnight again. I hear that these days they're talking about him as Mr. Taco. It's Trump always chicken out. So he started off with, you know, announcing, obviously in the 2nd of April, very punitive, significant import tariffs into the US. But in the subsequent, you know, 2 months that followed, many of those tariffs, you know, were changed or is put on hold. The 8th of July is a very important date for the globe because that is when the 3-month reprieve on the initial tariffs will lapse. And I hear him saying overnight again that, you know, he's waiting for countries to come to the fore to come make deals with him before that deadline date of the 8th of July. But there's also, you know, just in the last day or what, you know, signed another declaration on steel and aluminium imports, now moving from 25% import tariff to 50%. I mean, that's quite a drastic, you know, change overnight. So I think what I want to really say about this is there's lots of uncertainty about the global economy, its prospects, because we don't quite know what's happening next. As much as you know today, you don't know what's happening tomorrow. And, you know, I think from that point of view, there's a confidence crisis globally. You know, businesses are feeling uncertain and low in confidence because they cannot actually trust what's coming out of America. I mean, America's economy used to be the one sort of safe haven place. You know, if there's trouble in the world, you know, capital would flow to the US dollar, to US treasuries, because that's the stable destination in the world. And that is definitely in the last 2 months got a bit of a crack. And I think there's a definite, you know, a question mark about the US in terms of stability and in terms of, that safe haven status. So now money is really flowing, what we see back to the euro, so in terms of a safe haven destination, the Swiss franc, Japanese yen. So yeah, suddenly we've got a whole new, I would say, global theme playing out. So what has been the result of all of this is just what I show you on this graph. Downward revisions to global growth. So that top line, the light blue, was predictions for the global economies as quarterly data in December. So you can see more or less status quo and unchanged, sort of trending along in the same fashion than the previous year. And then, given tariff announcements, there was a downward revision to, that's a middle line, based on sort of light tariffs. That was the initially announced tariffs on steel, aluminium, automotive imports and so on. And then you can see in May, after the bigger, more punitive tariffs have been announced, a further quite significant downward revision to growth globally. And I think what's important here to note is that it's really in a big sense between the US and China in terms of this trade war playing out. And those two are the biggest economies of the world. So if they are getting, pressurized by the whole tariff war, it will impact the rest of us trading with the US and China and the overall globe. So that is from that point of view important. And, if you look at forecast revisions, in terms of the US, revisions have been quite significant, down by like 1 to 1.2 percentage points in terms of their growth rate. China, to a lesser extent, about 0.7, and the globe around 0.4, 0.5. But it's big numbers, if you talk about global forecasts. Maybe just one slide on just touching on the potential impact of what's happening globally on South Africa. And I really just want to sort of sensitize you for the two areas of impact. So on the one side, we've got the direct impact of the tariffs announced on South Africa, which is now on ice till the 8th of July. But we've also got announcements about aluminium and steel that will be particularly punitive for those sectors. But our exports to the US only account for 8% of our total exports. So the direct impact is not so big. Not going into the detail of our trading partners because of the time of today's chat, but just to note, it's fairly small. However, the indirect impact could harm South Africa's economy quite a bit. And here I talk about the other 92% of our exports, and where they go to Europe, to China, to some of our other trading partners that will also have an impact or feel the impact of the trade war on their economic growth. And, especially the Chinese economy is important for South Africa given our exports of commodities. So if there's a 0.7% lower growth in the Chinese economy than what was expected before tariffs, that will impact on their demand for commodities. And then we will feel it around that indirect way. So, and also if you add to that what's happening to the US dollar, what's happening to global interest rates, what's happening to the risk appetite of investors as a result of what's happening globally, all of those has got a bearing on the South African economy. I mean, we're an emerging market economy. If the world goes into a risk-off sentiment, the rand will be the first currency to feel that. So where we are now, we've seen, obviously the rand blew out, the rand came back. So I would say the initial shock reaction has gone past us, and now it's going to be all about the real economy impact. Once we start to see numbers coming out, how will this impact on our trade side? So yes, it's important because, South Africa has been a laggard on global growth for some years. So if you look at this graph, it's also quite a telling graph to me. The blue line here is the world economic growth compared to the green line is South Africa. And you can see that there was a fairly good positive correlation up until the global financial crisis in 2009. Thereafter, you can see how South Africa started to underperform compared to the globe. And, that underperformance has been ongoing. Since 28-29, we've never been able to catch up with the trend in the global economy. Obviously, the period of underperformance did coincide with the Zuma era, the heyday of state capture, the period in which our infrastructure were basically not maintained. I think what we are struggling with today in terms of things like rail infrastructure actually had its source all the way back in that time period when there were no capex invested in the rail infrastructure, for instance, but also in the rest of our infrastructure. So we are seeing the impact of that underperformance now in the economy. And just also to show you the growth rates as a matter of context. For the decade to 29, we had average real growth of 3.6% in South Africa. That halved in the next decade to 1.8%. And in the current 10-year period, the average growth rate is 1.1%. And this actually includes, which I'll get to in my next slide, some optimistic forecasts for the next 5 years. So if you look at the past 2, 3, 4 years, we are talking less than 1% real growth. So South Africa's economy has, in terms of growth rates, been going just one way, and that's downwards. So if we look at the medium-term prospects, so let me say maybe where we stand now, I'll say a bit more about the Q1 GDP number that was just released a day or what ago. But, given what's happening globally already, we've seen downward revisions to South Africa's GDP growth prospects for 2025. This is my growth rate forecast sitting at 1%. That compares to a downward revised number of 0.5% for last year. I mean, these numbers are critically low if you think about South Africa and the needs we have and the social economic challenges we need to address. So it's way too low to create jobs. It's way too low to provide enough services to the population that's unemployed. It's below population growth to begin with. So if you look at GDP per capita, that is just declining year by year with these type of low growth rates. So 1%, below population growth, we're all getting poorer on an annual basis. However, for the medium term, and I just want to put that out as a bit of a positive today, otherwise we might be all depressed by the end of the presentation. So I do believe that we could see an upward trend in economic prospects in the next 3 to 5 years. And this is really based on the focus that government has started to give to structural reform measures in the South African economy. And, as you know, it started off with electricity in a big sense, but the logistics sector is also very much on the table, in focus in terms of structural change, structural measures that could take us forward, that could result in a restoration of the decay that we've seen, that could result in more efficiency in our ports, in our rail. I mean, we've got the freight logistics roadmap now. That's basically the blueprint for structural reform in the logistics sector. We've now recently seen government made a big decision to allow third-party access to our rail network. That's a major development for South Africa. So, there is indeed progress in terms of the structural measures, but those do take time. I mean, if you look or think about electricity space, so the changes to regulation in 2021 has only really started to bear fruit for the economy in 2024. So you change something in terms of regulation framework, but it takes some years before you see the tangible impact on the economy. So what has been done now will hopefully start to bear fruit for us in the next few years. And here I want to also show you some work that was done by the Bureau of Economic Research, where they quantified the impact of the phase 1 reforms by Operation Vulindlela, of which electricity and logistics and on the visa reform and so on were the main focus. If fully implemented, they calculated that by the end of 2029, the real GDP growth rate could be 3.5%, based on the structural reform measures that they have been pursuing. And you might have seen that in the press in the last while. Operation Vulindlela, as you know, it's been driven out of sort of the state president's office to basically fast track structural reform in combination or in collaboration with like National Treasury and some of the the relevant state departments. They had a success rate of the measures they took on in the first phase of something like 95%. But not everything has been completed, and they said in the launch of the second phase that they will continue to push forward on those measures that are not yet fully implemented, like in the logistics sector where things were announced but not yet fully implemented. So this gives me hope. I think we can over time see that the potential growth rate of the economy is lifted by the measures that are now taking place in the background. But it will take time, and it's not easy to incorporate these type of structural reforms into a forecast because you never quite know when it's going to start to come through. When will you suddenly see, suddenly the say that tons transported via rail has made a leap upwards, and now actually something has started to happen on the rail front. You can't quite time that. So if you look at my forecast by 2029, I'm sitting at 2.7%. Not quite at the 3.5, but thinking that upward trend is what I actually want you to just to take note of. I do believe we're going to start to see that. As much as we economists always think, okay, this is going to be the year. So we started this year positive, then we got a headwind globally, and we had to revise downwards again. But there will come a time when our local developments will start to offset some of the other risk factors, and we could start. But I'm thinking I'm talking too much. Let me just speed up a bit. I might take the time that Anissa has spared. I might take up here with some more stories, but let me just speed up a bit. Looking at the transport sector, if I can move to that, showing you the correlation between real GDP growth and the real transport sector growth. And you can see a fairly good positive correlation. Obviously, in COVID time, the transport sector got hit hard, and afterwards that spike up did result in, I would say, some or outperformance of the general economy. But just look at this last 2 years. Actually, 2024 has been quite a dismal year for the transport sector. I'm sure you can all, perhaps confirm that in your businesses. That's been a really dismal year for the transport sector. And then in the first quarter of this year, a year on year, it's still down by 2.4%. So although we had a quarter on quarter growth rate that was positive, showing there's some signs, and I'll also allude to it in the Ctrack Transport Freight Index, there's signs of recovery in the first quarter of this year. Last year was really a negative quarter. And if you think, I enjoyed the video showing all the sectors. So if you think about it, mining sector, agricultural sector, manufacturing sector, construction sector, all four of those are currently in technical recession and has actually had negative growth numbers for the past 3 years. Let's get my numbers. The mining sector contracted on average 2.5% in the 3 years to 2024, and we had another negative in the first quarter. Similar for the other, I would say, primary and secondary sectors of the economy that are actually the drivers of demand for transport. So, from that point of view, looking at primary and secondary really under pressure, that explains why the transport sector also, fared quite badly. So South Africa's economy is more service orientated, so it's been sort of held up by the services side, the retail side that didn't do too badly, the financial sector side, but the real, primary, secondary, on the ground sectors really suffered. In the first quarter, though, we had a bit of life coming through in the agricultural sector. Actually, the past 2 quarters, there's been a bit of life on that front. But you can see the bottom there, the biggest contractions, mining and quarrying, construction, manufacturing. But we also then had the positive on the transport sector in the first quarter, which was a really reflection of the total freight load picking up somewhat in quarter 1. Okay, so if I can move over to talking a bit about the Ctrack Transport and Freight Index. So this index that I compile for Ctrack on a monthly basis really try to give you a snapshot of the status of the logistics sector. And it's actually looking at all the modalities of transport. And just a little pie graph there just gives you the weightings, more or less, without giving you the numbers there, but just to give you a feel for the weight. So weight is mostly on the road side. Road freight is still the dominant sector amongst the transport sector. Rail freight, between the two, it's about 70% of the index value. Then I'm looking at warehousing and storage, air freight, sea freight, pipeline transport. So those are the modalities that I look at every month. So it's a time-use indicator for quite a strategically important sector of the economy. I mean, the transport sector employs about 480,000 people in South Africa. That is a big chunk. Also, it contributes about 7% to our GDP, so it remains quite an important sector. The subsectors are quite intertwined. This we see a lot in the Ctrack Transport Freight Index. If we've got trouble, for instance, in the ports, then we see, okay, air freight is taking off. There's another modality that's taking up that slack. So we see those different trends as we go along looking at the data. And it is a good leading indicator for the transport sector growth in the economy. So just to give you a feel for the type of granular data that we use to provide this snapshot of the industry are things like activity on the N3 and the N4 toll roads if it comes to heavy vehicle transport. Looking at container and total cargo moving through the different ports. Those are the Transnet National Port Authority data. Estimate of fuel sales give us indication of what's moving through the pipeline. Also airport, flight activity, looking at air cargo numbers, looking at inventory levels in the economy to have a feel for what's happening to the warehousing side. So all of those types of data in combination gives us a very good snapshot of what is happening in the logistics sector. So looking at the latest trends, the latest data. So currently the Ctrack Transport Freight Index is published on a quarterly basis. So, and reported on, although it's a monthly number, we publish it quarterly at the moment. So for the 3 months to April, actually we've seen 2 positive growth numbers, February and March. And then in April, basically a zero, a flat index number. So it's a slight, I would say, loss of momentum in the month of April. But you can see overall the trend on the right-hand side graph there, we've had a prolonged slump, and it was 8 consecutive months of negative monthly growth rates in the Ctrack Transport Freight Index, showing you that pressure on the overall sector during the course of most of last year. But then, look, this current, the last blip on this graph, you can see a slight uptick. I would almost say rather a stabilization in the sector, more so than to call it a recovery. I think it's stabilizing, and hopefully from here onwards we could see more positive numbers coming through. Just to also show you the vast differences in the performance of the different modalities. It's always an interesting comparison. So the black line here is the Ctrack index, the overall index, and then you can see the different subsectors and how they performed in this graph since January 2022. So initially, the road freight sector did very well. I mean, when Transnet and the rail sides wheels came off in 21, 22, road freight, the road sector obviously stood ready to take up that slack. And you saw that outperformance and quite big growth numbers coming through on road freight activity. But then you can see since last year, we started to see that road freight sector starting to come off the very high levels with negative growth numbers. And you can see how that has resulted in that downward trend. Air freight, interesting one, has came out as a star performer last year, and that trend is actually continuing with air cargo trends just moving higher every month. So that's been an interesting trend to watch. But you can see the laggards are the sea freight. I mean, our ports are still struggling. Compared to, if you look at the dotted line, it's basically now at the same level where it was in 2022, and we're now 3 years later. And similarly, you can see the warehousing is also down there, as well as the rail freight is also still a lagger. I'll talk a bit about that more. So for the first 4 months, if we just look at where we are now and see, just to get a feel for compared to a year ago, you can see that yes, air freight is doing well. Rail actually picked up nicely. I'll speak a bit about that. Sea freight, but given that road, that is the heavy weighted subcomponent in this index, still declined by 7.5% on an annual basis. The overall index remains in negative territory on an annual basis. So looking at just in terms of the total payload and its correlation with the transport sector. So almost want to say, if you look at total payload, total tons to be transported in the economy, that remains I almost want to say, single most important indicator. So it is a combination of rail and road on this darker blue line. And you can see a very good correlation with transport growth overall. The differences between the light blue and or the turquoise and the navy here, that is your other modalities, like say air freight, that's done well last year, is that blip up on the blue line compared to the total tons to be transported. But overall, that remains a very good indicator. So this 2.4% was the increase in the transport sector quarter on quarter, and it was actually exactly in line with the freight payload growth that we've seen. Maybe to talk a bit about the split between road and rail, because I think that's an important factor for the industry to keep an eye on. And it's also obviously the focus of the structural reform, is to really get a recovery and the restoration of our rail network to move some of the trucks off our roads, given the negative impact thereof in different respects, from quality of our roads and congestion and so forth. So this is just to show you a bit of a trend in its annual data, the rail and road freight split. So given that it's annual data, it doesn't quite show the rock bottom numbers, but I can just quote them for you, that rail freight actually had the lowest percentage of total tons transported in December 2022 at a percentage of only 10.9%. So that was the rock bottom moment for the rail sector. In terms of annual numbers, it was in 2022 at 15.5%. But compare that to the period before the decay really started, and that was, say, in the period 2008 to 2017, that average was almost 26%. And where we are currently, the most recent data for March indicate, that's the latest data point on this graph, is quarter one this year is at 17.9%. So coming from 10%, 10.9 to where we are now, there has been some improvement, but it's still way below where rail freight used to operate. And, part of the structural reform focus is to get the rail network to be more efficient and to get that percentage up compared to where it was. So, and then you can see, so your road is just the other side of that coin. So road freight has come down from about 84.5, just close to 90% in that time period, or that November 2022. But it's come down now to the latest available at 82.1%, still dominant, and the dominance will not actually change, but there will be a slight, I would say a balancing of these ratios. Looking at the growth between those two, road and rail, interesting to look at quarter one's data showing that rail freight increased by 5.7% year on year, whereas road freight still dropped, contracted by 6.9%. So you can see that trend now, rail up and road freight down. That is still currently the situation in terms of the trend. And what I've done is I've just taken quarter one's data, that's actual. And I just said, if we take quarter one and we extrapolate that for the full year 2025, and say if quarter one is the rest of the year will look like we have seen in quarter one, you can look at the fairly dismal 2025 for the transport sector again, because actually total on a year-on-year basis, your total freight was still down by 5.4%. So if you apply that on the annual numbers of 2024, which is a bit of a negative view, I would say, but just for an illustration, I've done this. can see further drop in tons to be transported via road. And actually the increase in rail is quite small on this graph. It's almost not showing. So, but let me say we're looking at growth rate this year 1% for the economy compared to last year 0.5. So one would hope that the Q1 is not going to be the trend for the rest of the year. So just lastly, before I kind of conclude, just to show you a few other interesting, graphs, type of things that we look at, and when we do the analysis of the Ctrack Transport of Freight Index, we track that what's happening, in the heavy truck movements between the N3 and the N4 toll routes. What's interesting is that we've seen that when there's trouble at the port of Durban, then you see how trucks redirect towards the Maputo port, using the N4 toll route to the detriment of the N3. So those type of numbers, you can see the right-hand side graph there shows your heavy vehicles through the N4 Machadodorp toll plaza versus container handling at the port. And you can see that in some of the months there's a direct, an indirect correlation. So on the right-hand side, it's an inverse scale. So it shows you that if there's trouble in Durban port and there's a reduction in container handling, they trucks and businesses redirect to other ports like the N4. To Maputo via the N4. So those are the types of interesting, analysis that we can do, looking at all the granular data that's incorporated in the Transport Freight Index. So looking at just the last slide, how does the index compare to the transport sector? I would say slightly more volatile compared to the transport sector growth on a quarter-on-quarter basis. But lately, you can see that upward trend that we have seen in Q1's GDP numbers have indeed been signaled by the transport or the Ctrack Transport Freight Index. So to conclude, takeaways, the SA economy is muddling along. We are not seeing growth numbers that we would like to see, that could really foster growth, that could give momentum to the economy. We're still in this, I would say, muddling along, stop-start nature. 1% this year, 0.5 last year, still not meaningfully changed the trend. We remain stuck in a fairly low growth environment for different reasons. We have started to believe this could be a good year for the tailwinds, and I haven't spoken about the macroeconomy a lot, but when we've seen interest rates coming down by a full percentage point now, cumulatively over the past 6-9 months, we've got our inflation rate at low levels, sitting at 2.8%. So we've got more scope for interest rate cuts, actually, and we've got real wage increases as a result of the low inflation numbers. So there's a couple of tailwinds that could, push the economy forward. And in combination with what I would say a normal global scenario, could have been a better growth year for South Africa. But now we've got some more headwinds and really a low base to start off with in Q1. So, but hold on to the medium-term upside potential, which I truly believe we're going to see. There will be a day that we celebrate, the impact of structural reforms on the economy, but there's some time that needs to still lapse on that. So it's a hesitant recovery in the transport sector. In Q1, essentially a stabilization is what the index is telling us. And yes, I hope that all of you are on the mailing list of Ctrack to receive our quarterly report on the Ctrack Transport and Freight Index. And if you're not, you must talk to Nicholas to be added, because it's an interesting I would say insight that is at your disposal to look at the different modalities and how road freight is, and then tracking what's happening in the sector. So that is me. Thank you very much. I will not be around by the question and answer time. So I thought if you really have a burning question, you can find me over tea time, and then I will gladly answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elise. What a interesting presentation. We do have little gifts there for all the presenters. Sherry and the team are taking care of that. Thank you, Sherry. We really appreciate that. Granular data to have a snapshot in the industry. I was thinking, if you haven't got insight to this index, I think, how are you going to predict, how are you going to predict anything? How are you going to know what's going on in the industry? How are you going to know where to invest and risk your business in this industry? So this is actually so crucial to have access to this index. Before I forget, Nicholas just reminded me, if you guys want to participate in the draw for the Springbok session, you need to enroll for it at the Ctrack stand. So please make sure when we take a break that you go and enroll for that Springboks visit. So that you might be the winner for that. And then I suppose they can also enroll for the freight index. Yes, they can enroll for the freight index as well. So I think that's a good exercise. Get access to information and make sure you know what's going on. There's such encouragement to see that the road sector is growing and that we do have, 10% to 70% growth, which is actually great, but obviously not enough yet. So we need to get there. Thank you very much, Elise. Such a interesting presentation. Looking at the program again, our next presenter then will be Craig Alexander. He's the head of central support at Ctrack. He's looking at visibility in car and truck hijackings using data to identify trends and enhance awareness. Thank you very much, Craig.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. So I'm going to discuss a different type of recovery versus what obviously the economists are going to do. My negative trends you want to see, the positive trends you don't want to actually see within the industry itself. Just part of going through the trends, I'm going to then obviously give you recovery statistics, different industry trends that are going to come through, most affected industries that we've picked up. And it's not only from our industry or from what we're doing from our business, but also with partners that we use and obviously engaging with SAPS, utilizing the recovery stats from other parties and other engagements that we use with law enforcement and other agencies. The one good thing is the Eastern Cape has dropped on their latest trends from Q1 last year to this year. They've dropped 68% on truck hijackings and thefts. KZN has dropped by 37%, Western Cape by 64%, but unfortunately, Gauteng has gone up by 67.4%. So there has been drops in other industries and areas, but there has been a massive uptake in different areas. You will see the same type of data on the stats that I've got there as well. You'll also see that your hijacking trends versus theft, your hijackings are still quite high versus your thefts. And I'll obviously then give the data later on with different regions and provinces. And you'll also see in the percentages on the graphs that are given now, you will also see the same different trends we're picking up on our side and our data is exactly the same and tying in hand with the quarterly stats with the SAPS. One other thing, obviously, in certain regions is the guys are not reporting their cases for hijacking and theft because they know once the vehicle has been impounded, it's going to be stripped more in the impound than actually what it was when it was hijacked. And I know a lot of the transporters, they laugh because they know of it, and it obviously stands there for a long period of time. So you never get it back the same when it goes into the impound. And you'll see there again on the Eastern Cape where in 2024 it picked up, and then obviously in the Eastern Cape in 2025 it dropped. But the same thing with Gauteng, you can actually see the increases that are happening as well. Obviously the industry trends and geographic hotspots. Like I said, you see Western Cape, it did drop, but Khayelitsha, Philippi, and Goodwood, you'll see in the modus operandis, and that goes a little bit more with the guys that do have, unfortunately, we went from our Toyota Hiluxes, and we said we're now going to get our D-Maxes. The D-Maxes have overtaken the Hiluxes in hijackings and thefts. So if you're looking to get a D-Max, just know it's overtaken the trend with the Hiluxes, and obviously the Ford Rangers and the Nissan NP200s are also sitting quite close there. But you'll see in the modus operandi that I give, you'll see one of the things with obviously the LDVs and the vehicles, they use a tap-tap method. where they basically cause an accident to get you to stop. And they do exactly the same. I worked for 6 years in the transport industry, managing 350 trucks, and it's the same thing. They would utilize that to try and pull the vehicle over just to get him to stop. And that's where they would then hijack the guy, or they just steal his relevant stuff that's on him, depending on what they actually want from it. Gauteng, Soweto, Pretoria, quite large. And you'll see also if you follow different trends on the spiking incidents that do happen, it is within the N14 area, and it is the same type of area that's coming there where they are obviously getting the vehicles, they're robbing them, and that does actually change a little bit. So there you'll see the industries most affected, vans targeted during delivery. So the guys that do delivery services, and yes, we like to obviously give data to our clients, and you can see where the asset is and what's happening, but you'd have guys that actually book your vehicle or book parcels and they want to have deliveries. They can see where your vehicle is and they're passing that on to the syndicates, or they actually are part of the syndicate, and that's where they're actually robbing and hijacking the guys while they're doing the deliveries itself. The long haul trucks are intercepted obviously on the open roads and border routes, and we are picking that up on the N3 and the N4, because obviously you can see from what Elisa given as well is where the trends pick up, where they move from one to the other. But that's also then targeted by the blue light gangs, and obviously different methods to get it taken. You'll see your FMCG and your high valued goods, electronics, groceries, alcohol, clothing are prime targets. It's an easy turnover for them. There is obviously investigations into certain areas where you've got these pop-up shops where the money they're spending versus the money that they're getting in is different. Your goods are quickly turned over, and obviously getting some sort of asset tracking or something into that load to try and then recover that, but they're taking the stuff that is quick to turn over. So what, like I said to you, the recovery tactics that's used, the modus operandi, it's obviously, and you'll see the next slides that I'll provide, is different type of jammers that the syndicates are utilizing. It's actually very easy to get your hands onto a jammer. It was obviously, we were part of the Hawks and the SAPS, where we removed it off a website of a prominent company that operates in South Africa, where you could buy that for $2.99. And they advertise you can actually jam your GPS, that you got safety, that nobody can see where you actually are. So it was removed off, and we're busy targeting other websites, but it just does keep popping up as well. They obviously use advanced jammers, the tracking of goods in warehouses. So in areas where the trends are dropping, they are now going straight to your warehouse and infiltrating the warehouse itself, where they've got syndicates placed within your warehouse to actually start getting the goods from your warehouse, because they know tracking is getting more advanced. There's more visibility with SAPS and obviously different forums that they're running, and they now go straight to the warehouse and they know exactly where it is, what it is they're looking for. They've got sophisticated jammers to jam all of your cameras. They've got guys that are dressed exactly the same uniforms as your guys themselves. It happened a couple of weeks ago in Pomona at a truck stop. That truck stop operated perfectly fine for 24 hours, where they were actually offloading the copper goods onto another truck. But everybody that was operating the gate, the refueling, the shop, was all actually part of the syndicate that had obviously taken over that previous evening and then left at 6 o'clock the next morning. So it was business as usual while they were actually stealing that load. So if guys think that it's safe at truck stops, etc., yes, there is. Even those that are obviously you can pay to have your truck sleep there, they are targeting them as well, and they infiltrate them, and actually you'll think it's business as usual. You'll see nothing wrong, but they actually are stealing from the relevant vehicles. Fake police, I'm sure if a lot of us have seen the articles, Heidelberg is one of the biggest areas that does have the fake police. On your N4, going between Witbank and Middelburg, they also operate quite a lot. There is a lot of syndicates that are getting busted with it. It is obviously, unfortunately, police members that are involved in those things. It is guys that are on duty, but that type of data with obviously the cameras, we can identify certain vehicles that are taking part of it, and you can actually then pin down to where it actually comes from. So where I'm talking about the different types of jammers, so you'll see there on the first slide is a little jammer that plugs into your cigarette lighter. that is what they generally use to steal your relevant load. That's not to take the horse. That'll jam your GPS of your tracking device. The tracking will never stop reporting. It'll stay reporting in the same location. And that's where they take the truck, off-hook the trailer, and rehook another truck that they've possibly taken a day or two before to get rid of your trailer. They go and offload the goods and they ditch your trailer somewhere else. One of the aspects that they've also started changing is they're bringing their own battery packs. Historically, you'd plug it into a cigarette lighter. It lasts about 15 to 20 minutes on the jammer. It gets too hot and it blows the fuse, and that's where the jammer stops working. What they now do is they actually bring their own battery pack to power it itself, and they bring ice packs as well to keep that jammer cool as well. So there's different types of jammers. There's different things that's in the industry. I'd urge you to, obviously, those that are running logistics companies, if you've got where you do spot checks on your vehicles, etc., try and see if there is such a jammer within a vehicle or drivers that have got them, because more than likely your load is going to start going missing and the driver could possibly be involved. When the guys are standing at the ports or they're actually standing in the lines, that's where they are getting approached by the syndicates. And a lot of you know, on your loading manifest, you're putting what is on there, correct? Some companies are saying that you need to put an EPOD, what is the amount? They have all the information for them to sell your load to somebody else and get it at a fraction of a price. And the guys know, yes, your load is worth 60,000 for X, it's 100,000 for Y. They know exactly what's in there, and they will then approach the driver and give him a payoff for a percentage of that respective load itself. And obviously that's where it goes missing. Within your ports as well, there is syndicates operating within the ports, especially for the chrome side, and obviously with copper on the different routes. The guys are quite advanced. It's not your fly-by-night guys driving around just looking for a vehicle. They are checking it. They are infiltrating companies to actually get that type of information. Just to give you some examples of vehicles we have recovered, where it has been stripped, obviously utilizing our tracking data and obviously different backup systems that we have got. Unfortunately, the vehicle that you see, just the shell, it had an accident after being hijacked, and the community decided they can strip the complete vehicle and take what was left of it when the guys actually left. One new trend for the guys running on the N4 route is they're hijacking your vehicles. They're not taking the load, they're not taking the horse, they rob the driver, and they're actually stealing your tires on your trailers. They're not taking the diff tires, they're not taking the drive tires, they are taking your trailer tires. It is becoming an ongoing trend within that area that they are just taking it for the trailer tires directly. So obviously there is a transporter or a company looking for tires, and it does actually happen that they will then hijack the vehicle just for the tires itself. So what we then take examples of, where we say we give the insight of what we do on our side, is we don't just look at an active alarm that comes through. We proactively monitor the trends on what we are picking up with a combination of different types of alarms, with the cameras that are actually targeting and giving us insight as well. And we are doing automatic dispatches, whether the customer says, no, everything is fine. A driver with a gun to his head is going to tell you everything's fine. He's going to stick to his route. They've got the loading manifest before they jam that vehicle and start doing anything. So we then obviously check on the trends. What are the statuses we look for that combine together? And with those relevant statuses, we do automatic dispatches, as I said. And the one trend that we did pick up with is on the guys, hijackers obviously don't care about the rules of the road. They don't wear a seatbelt. They jump in, they take in that vehicle, push the driver into the back, gunpoint, or put him into another vehicle. And that's why it's an important thing on, if you have got cameras, to have it that you have unbelted picking up. The guys know that if they attempt to do anything on the cameras or cover the camera, you're going to be alerted beforehand, because that's one thing that everybody looks for. But if you have your drivers adhering to the rules of the road unbelted, I can guarantee you now, based on the trends and what we're picking up, is we normally get the unbelted before we start getting any combination of alarms. And remember, by the time we get this combination of alarms, it's when they're starting to remove the device, and that's why we want to get it before they actually start removing the device. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Craig. I should once say thank you very much for the concerning information. It was really comforting. Especially if you've got crystal, I think then it's not a problem. Thank you, Craig, and I'm quite sure a lot of people would like to engage with you in the questions and answers and during the break session. Let's have a look at a great video.
LCP Roofing started roughly 15 years ago. We started as a truss plant, and the trucking side evolved out of that, where we realized that we need to transport our own material. Started with one truck, and from that, it just evolved into a full-on transport company. We've been using Ctrack for 4 years, and we make use of the live cameras as well as the Crystal fleet management system. Well, it's made our fleet management as a whole a lot easier. It's more centralized, and it's helped with the clamping down on theft.
I'm the Managing Director of EPS Career Services. We mainly focus on the primary, secondary, and tertiary transportation within the transport industry. Most definitely where I can praise Ctrack is the background support that we're receiving and the hard work that goes in once we put through a request. They are really willing to invest in you as a company. There's never a no for Ctrack. It's we'll look at it and we'll give you feedback. They've got a brilliant team. You can phone them at 2 in the morning and it will be resolved. So I think that is something that Ctrack can praise themselves on. And if they continue with that customer service, I can only see a prosperous future for Ctrack. And yeah, from an EPS point of view, from my side, I want to say thank you because I can see the work that Ctrack puts in and how they take hands with the employees of EPS, making sure that it runs like a well-oiled machine. And thanks for that, Ctrack.
Thanks for that, Ctrack. Righty, ladies and gents. Our next great presentation will be delivered by Mr. Llewellyn Richardson. He's the Technology Executive of VirtualScape, looking at compliance, how telematics data ensures and predicts regulatory compliance in mining. Thank you very much, Llewellyn.
We are VirtualScape, a service provider in managed data solutions for the industrial sector, for Africa, by Africans. Since 2007, we've been trusted to help drive meaningful progress in leading businesses in the mining and logistics industry. To stay ahead, you need to see the full scope of your business. That's the difference between making informed decisions and making smart decisions. Some measure success by the amount of data they can capture. We measure ours by the amount of impact that data can make to the business. Our approach to data and the principles we apply, we call SMART: specific and sophisticated, measurable and meaningful, actionable and aspirational, realistic and relevant, timely and thorough, trusted and tested. Our solutions are developed in a dynamic think tank with proven products such as Sense Mining, Pintle Black, and more. Not only do we capture data from devices measuring and integrating multiple inputs, outputs, machines, vehicles, and people, we form meaningful connections between these millions of data points, so they are streamlined and insightful. We break this information down to make it accessible and understandable with an easy-to-use platform that makes sense of it all to unlock opportunities that will impact your business for the better. With our solutions and team of experts, you get to keep your fingers on the pulse of your business like never before. Never missing data connections, never missing an insight, never missing the opportunity to be better, enhancing your performance. Equipping and empowering you to make critical decisions, not in hours, but in minutes. Optimizing operations, boosting productivity. Changing your bottom line is our bottom line. Our why? Bridging the digital divide in the industrial sector, delivering real impact, real change, real progress, and real value. When we collaborate, the only way your business will move is forward. Virtualscape. Progress beyond measure.
Power to predict. Sounds like marketing BS to me. Let's find out if it is. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Llewellyn Richardson. So I'm the technology executive at Virtualscape. I have a software development background and 20 years experience in tracking and integration and tracking integration. So today I will show you how data can be used to predict behavior, drive compliance, and highlight missed opportunities. As you've seen from the video, Virtualscape operates in the industrial automation space. What exactly is industrial automation? In short, real-time monitoring and data collection. So whether this be PLC systems, SCADA systems, tracking, video recording, sensors, or any other IoT devices, these device activity leads to data, whether it's manned or machined, whether it's manual or automated. With sufficient data, patterns starts to emerge. We at Virtualscape find these patterns that tell the story. So what do we do with data? Data can be applied in various ways. We can use it for information purposes. Driver goes to a specific location, you get a text. You can use it for visibility, as in the case with tracking. We can use it to drive compliance, driver identification, or in the event of a violation. We can use it for early warning systems, when your vehicle needs to go for a service. We can use it for security to detect unauthorized access. Or we can use all of the above to do data-driven decision-making. Data in your business is very much like the cluster in your vehicle. You can drive your vehicle without this cluster using experience. You don't need to know the fuel in the vehicle. You don't need to know the speed that you're traveling at. You don't need to know the revolutions of your engine. But what if I told you you have to operate this vehicle under constraints or limitations? What if I tell you you have to drive this vehicle with an undisclosed amount of fuel, travel 200 kilometers, do not exceed 60 kilometers an hour, and be there at exactly 10 o'clock? Would you still be able to do it? Data used right tells you what your business can't see. I'll give you an example. In open cast mining, a 100-ton dump truck has a speed limit of 40 kilometers per hour. This is set out by the DMRE and Mine Health and Safety Act. Using telemetry data, driving compliance is easy. Due to the penalties incurred by the operator and the mine, the operators decide to stay well below 36 kilometers per hour. Problem solved. Not quite. A dump truck traveling at 36 kilometers per hour as opposed to a possible and safe 38 kilometers per hour loses 0.6 loads per engine hour on a 2-kilometer haul. Insignificant in the moment, but it equates to about 200 tons per month on an average size fleet. If the mine has a strip ratio of 1 to 10, that would equate to 240 tons of ore. Considering an ore price of 2,000 Rand a ton, this loss is estimated at 480 million Rand per annum. Talk about missed opportunities. We call this non-observable phenomenon. A human can't see the variance in speed, that the data can. We can use data for smarter decision making. The obvious answer isn't always the correct answer. When you need to increase your production, you go and add trucks, right? In reality, more trucks does not necessarily equate to more production and revenue. There's a tipping point where the addition of a truck becomes more costly. Too many trucks in a cycle equates to longer queue times either at your loader or at your dump. The result of this is higher cost and less production to working harder for less. We actually have a real world case study at VirtualScape where a client parked half of his fleet and still maintained the same production. The client achieved this through an aggregation and compounding small wins from missed opportunities. I'll show you an illustration now. This diagram is what we refer to as the value driver tree. Each element in the value driver tree is a metric measured separately and considered in combination to others to tell the story. The top part of the tree is the cost drivers, where the bottom part is where the revenue comes from. As with any business, you cannot divorce the one from the other. You need to spend the money to make the money. We can reduce the cost and we can increase production, which ultimately leads to profit. Using a theory of constraints, we understand that a system is only as strong or as fast as its weakest point. Our goal is to go and identify all the bottlenecks and increase throughput. As mentioned, one of our IoT devices that we fit is a Ctrack device. We fit this in our mining platform. We have a long-standing partnership relationship with Ctrack. From mining LDVs, generators, lightning plants, water pumps, these are among a few that we fit on mines. Another case study that I can show you where Ctrack plays a pivotal role in the transport and logistics solution is in this product. This is when the product has been mined already. This solution is the perfect example of how multiple IoT devices can be used to benefit a business. I just want to focus on some of the key areas. Inside the mine, stockpiles are measured. Individual stockpiles, grades, low grade, high grade, ISCOM. From there, outbound weighbridge data is recorded for legal compliance. We then use license plate recognition software for vehicle identification. From there, it goes on road, where Ctrack plays a pivotal role. We integrate the tracking as well as camera systems for live vehicle tracking. From here is where the predictability starts. At this point, we know which driver is on duty and with which truck and trailer combination. We know what time the truck left the mine. We know what product he's carrying. We know what type of product it is, and we know what the destination is. Combining this data with live tracking data, we can predict when the truck will arrive at the mine or the destination. This allows for automated access to streamline the process while still maintaining compliance. Once inside the offloading point, the truck is weighed once again. The weight is compared to the previous outbound weight, and any variance is then flagged and alerted should it be necessary. Finally, a one-time code is paired with a pre-approved geofence location and time to unlock the PTO device on the truck to allow for tipping. The solution is fully automated and fully driven by data alone. It provides real-time updates to growth to your business without labor-intensive capturing. By combining all the data, we reveal what used to be unobservable. It ticks all the boxes: visibility, compliance, automation, security, and foresight, all rolled up into one. Predictive telemetry is no longer a luxury. It's a necessity. It's more than just numbers. It's the foundation for smarter, faster, and safer decision-making. It turns uncertainty into opportunities. Imagine what data prediction can do for your business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Llewellyn. This was great. Actually brought back a lot of memories. The other day, about 10 years ago, I had a discussion with a friend of mine. His name is Riyad. And we were driving somewhere and I was using my GPS. He's a lawyer of trade. Don't even know Riyad Khan. He's with DOT many years ago. But on the stage, he said to me, "You haven't got a clue where you're going, do you?" I said to him, GPS is taking me there. He said, "Exactly. The GPS is taking you there. You haven't got a clue where you are. If I take away, if I remove the GPS from your world at this moment, you will be lost." I said, "Well, I have to agree with that." And listening to him just level and now, I think that's where we are, you know. So where should I go? Fall back to the old atlas with those big paper maps and, you know, like map page H2 and you go page to H2. Remember those days? Paper maps and stuff. Yeah, those were the days. So visibility is definitely what it's all about. If you haven't got visibility, where are you? You're lost. And so thank you for sharing this with us. It's so crucial. Looking at our program, now it's a great time to take a break and visit the exhibitions and have something, snacks, obviously sponsored by Ctrack. But the big thing is to network, to go and enroll for the Springboks. Also go and enroll for the freight index and some networking. And then we will see each other back again. Let's make it, we have got it here at 10:30. Let's make it No, sorry, 11:30. So let's make it at 11:15. We see each other back here again. That should give us ample time to network. Thanks a lot. 11:15. Thank you, guys. Ladies and gents, please take up your seats.
Hi, Chris. Next slide, previous slide. And does it have a pointer?
Yeah, but don't look on this fancy. All right, let's settle down, ladies and gents. Right, ladies and gents, thanks to Ctrack, we had very nice snacks, but lunch is still there as well. So looking forward to that one as well, being treated here. We're still talking data to enable the power to predict, proudly hosted by Ctrack today, the 5th of June, 2025. And the next focus area is control. And we have Christian Storm. He's the head of software and data of Ctrack. He's going to talk about using predictive insights to manage costs and improve operational control. Thank you very much, Christian.
Good morning. My name is Christian Storm, and I'm the head of software and data for Ctrack. And today I'll be talking about using fuel usage to manage operational control and cost. Today I will be covering the following topics. So first, we're going to do some basic math and look into what is fuel efficiency. Then we're going to go a bit deeper into it and try to explain the variables that make up fuel efficiency. Then we're going to look at the old Ctrack fuel efficiency model. And then by adding mass, we're going to look at the next generation of fuel efficiency decomposition. Then we'll look at some static reports and then using AI to predict what fuel usage can lead to, and some potential savings. Then I'm going to come back to the operational control and cost, and finally some considerations. So it's just basics. It's just basic physics, fuel efficiency. You have a power required, and that equals the force that you apply over velocity. So we all have learned this basic Newtonian law: if force is equal to times mass acceleration. And if you basically have these variables, you can calculate the power required, which have been shown to be highly correlated to fuel usage. So for this exercise, this formula will basically be our fuel usage. You can also use the CAN bus, but in the past, companies have been reluctant to share that data. So you can actually get the actual fuel usage on the CAN bus. But we're seeing that opening now. But in the meantime, we have a solution that works with this formula. And as Elon Musk said, to land a rocket, you need enough fuel, more mass, more fuel, which means less payload capacity. So fuel is directly correlated to the mass that you are moving. So to break it up a bit further, there are different forces working on a vehicle. So we have the rolling resistance to get the truck moving. We have the aerodynamic drag while it's in movement. Then we have gradients, topography that the truck will go through as it goes inclines and goes down slopes. And then we have the acceleration as it tries to accelerate forward and gain speed. So we can, the core component there is mass, which we didn't have, as there is no mass calculator for the trucks that is connected to the vehicle. So we used a gross combination mass that the truck can pull, and that obviously led to some model inefficiencies, as it will, if the truck goes from the mine to the quarry, it will have more weight in that direction than going backwards, where it will probably be empty. So we didn't find it as a good predictor without having mass. So here you can see our model without mass. You can see we are saying that the RPMs, the throttle position, the speed, and the acceleration are key components that affects the fuel usage for that trip. And the topography in this case was a positive, above the average. So this is basically, if you take 0 is the average that a trip like this should take. This driver, you can see by the revs per minute, the throttle position was below these averages. So he actually used 6.5 kilometers per liter less than or more than the average. So if the average was 2, you used about 6.5 less than the average, or more than average, sorry. So he is 30% inefficient on this trip. But then when we added mass, we can now see, oh, let me first show the video to show you how we done that. So in Australia, we had a demo to actually showcase this, and Loadman, which is a company based in Australia, developed for us a system to calculate the load on the axis. So So from the video, it showed that obviously we can build in things at the unit to say that it's over mass or under mass, but now we have the mass while the truck is driving. So then if we do the same model or the trip analysis with our model, we can actually see that the cargo accounted for 0.2 of the variance. So the drivers, which are the revs per minute, the throttle position, and the speed, which is driver associated, are less of an impact on the overall score. But you can still see the driver attributes are still the strongest predictor of, or the highest predictor of the fuel use. So then, so we can also do some static reports. Now we have the fuel use on the axis of the trailer. So now we can give you some reports of what loads have been carried, or we can take it to the next level and tell you now that we can see your usage or the fuel usage, and these drivers are outside of the norm. So their usage or their fuel usage pattern is way higher than normal. And because we've excluded mass, we can give a more accurate picture, or we can have a higher confidence that these numbers are actually affecting the trip that he was on. And as you can see, the acceleration of this, or is it acceleration? Yeah. The rev counter was the biggest contributor to the fuel usage itself, and we can highlight the drivers that are directly associated with these high revving numbers. So if we then address this, you can see that you can save up to 360 for this specific mock tenant that we have, about 360,000 rands a month in fuel use. So the next generation of fuel efficiency, bringing in operational control and cost. So now we have a better model, so we can give you better isolating driver behaviors so that you can address them directly with the driver and manage better driver behavior. And via driver score, via driver debriefs, whatever you want to use. Then we can also now give you some vehicle statistics. Some vehicles do better with heavy loads than others, and we can map that out from which vehicles to use when, and give vehicles the correct load for optimal fuel use over a route. And finally, we can look at the cost, have new, better cost models, because now we know how much fuel use we'll have over certain routes, so you can create better costing models for your clients to ask them to pay the correct price. And obviously the optimal mass loading per vehicle. So yeah. So some final considerations to be made. So the application of this is obviously can be negative in a way, as you can take the information and just blame the driver and fire the driver because he's not driving optimally. But there are still other variables associated with the trips and with how we are calculating fuel use. So it should just be a guidance for managers to help their drivers to understand and empower them to drive better and have better fuel use over their trips. Again, this goes into data quality and availability. Not all of this data is always available, as you need the right hardware and to measure the mass, etc. And this is obviously associated with a cost to have these capabilities. And finally, regulatory and compliance with POPI and GDPR. It is becoming more difficult every day to make sure that we can create these models, and we need to make sure as owners of these, custodians of this data, to make sure that it is GDPR compliant. We do obfuscate and we don't leak any private information to the outside world. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Christian. I think this is AI at its best, looking at these presentations. So extremely interesting. Thank you very much for that. But we would like to have a look at another video.
Managing a fleet isn't just about tracking vehicles anymore. It's about intelligence, efficiency, and control. Still, who has the time to actually process all that information and make so many decisions? With multiple moving parts and a data overload, it's easy to miss what's important. Ctrack's Crystal platform puts you back in control with smart, AI-powered insights. You're not just keeping up, you're staying ahead of the competition by reacting faster and smarter. Whether you manage a handful of vehicles or thousands, Crystal scales with you. From new entrepreneurial ventures to established enterprises, Crystal grows and adapts with your fleet. Because no two fleets are the same, and different industries have different requirements. You can add additional business features as you need them. Like analytics, custom AI scripts, electronic proof of delivery, routing, scheduling, and cameras. Our solution offers a strong core with modular optional plugins and AI that works for you. Because having the power to predict and staying ahead isn't just smart, it's a superpower.
There we go. Great stuff. Yes, indeed. So ladies and gents, our next presenter then will be Mr. Bradley Fisagi. He's the sales manager of Optics, looking at the safety domain, and it's how camera data supports proactive risk management and safety. Thank you very much, Bradley. We're just going to do a quick PC shop here.
Great. Good morning, everyone. A big thanks to Ctrack and the Transport Forum for hosting today. I think it's been a very insightful morning so far, and I'm hoping to add to that. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Brad. I'm the sales manager at Optics, and today I have the privilege of talking to you about how camera data supports proactive risk management and safety. I will keep it concise and to the point, and I know that some of my Ctrack colleagues might be rolling their eyes there, but Nicholas promised me that if we stick on track, we can finish by 2:30. I can still play 9 holes of golf before we go home. So that's the plan. A big reason of why we're here is the Optics Ctrack partnership. And what it gives us is not only the power to predict, but the insights to protect. Optics and Ctrack have joined forces to create a smarter, safer future for fleets, and together we're bringing you the best of both worlds. I had the privilege of going to Ctrack's 40-year celebration not too long ago, and Optics has just surpassed 20 years in video telematics of our 25 years in existence. And an important part of this, and I think a big theme for today, was centered around the data and the data that gives us the ability or the power to predict. Now, I think a lot of us, especially coming from the transport industry in this room, will understand how important historical data is and the impact of its accuracy on your ability to predict. And it's important to know that with Ctrack's long history and the ability and their vast data lakes that they've gathered over the years, and now being supplemented by Optics' data, has put us in a position where we are bringing something completely new to the market. So this partnership empowers fleet operators and owners with the power to predict risks and the insights to prevent them. We are transforming data into actionable insights and vehicles into safer, more efficient assets. I've put up a couple of quotes here that between Ctrack and Optics in our early days used to get a lot of from our clients. Things like, I want to keep my drivers safe, but coaching such a large amount of them is impossible. We understand what it takes to actually coach a driver and get them to change their ways. This can be very difficult because ultimately what we really want is the driver on the road driving a route, earning the business income. So to take them out of that and use time that could be spent delivering stock, we are now training them in a classroom, not exactly an ideal situation for efficiency. We also often got in the earlier days of telematics, we received a costly claim. Our driver saying it's not their fault, they weren't involved, it was the third party, and we don't know how we're going to prove it. And I think a lot of us in the transport industry as well, whether we're in that transition from going insured through an underwriter, a broker, or self-insured, we understand the impact each and every claim has on our business. We also have things like a customer claiming the goods weren't delivered, even though on our Ctrack device on Crystal, it's showing us it passed, it went on the right routes, it arrived at the location, the geofence activation was triggered, but the client is now disputing the delivery. And the last one, which is what, in order to keep to my 20 minutes, I'm going to focus on today, is the driver said he had to slam on brakes to avoid an animal crossing the road. That's why there was a harsh braking event on my Ctrack reports. It is something that they they sort of got away with in the early days because there was no backup or no proof or context to any of these reports that we were getting. We understood in the early days that the better fleet managers were taking this information and trying to be able to make good decisions based on this data they were receiving. But without the correct context, it became very problematic in order to get it right or to get the accuracy right. So the question came up, is harsh braking a driver behavior? Because as mentioned in the previous slide, the driver said, I harsh brake because an animal was crossing the road. Now, on face value, a fleet manager is going to take this and say, fantastic. We didn't hit that animal. There's no damage to my vehicle. There's no loss of operation. We're good to go here. The reality is when you say that more than 10 times, it sort of loses its fidelity. And we now start questioning, are we driving on roads where the fences are broken and the animals are a huge problem in this area? And this is where the power of Ctrack's history is coming into it, because we can look historically back on that data and understand, yes, this is actually a problematic road with wildlife crossing the road. And if you're driving at night while there are no fences, there's a high probability you're going to hit an animal. But the reality is, the natural evolution of data was always eventually going to come to video and audio telematics. It's the only thing that gives us the real picture. It's why we all scroll on Instagram on Reels, because it's giving us what we need. It's showing us and letting us hear absolutely everything. All our senses are engaged. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, when we get this harsh braking report, what does the vehicle say? And as some of you would have experienced on Crystal, there is a G-force or an accelerometer in all the devices. There is in the camera as well. And that will show you on a graphical manner what actually happened at what time points. So in this one, we can clearly see there was a harsh braking event. Both the forward and latitude G-force sensors were triggered and it caused a dip. Then we got to ask ourselves, what does the driver say? Okay, so in this particular example, it wasn't the animal crossing the road, but without the video, we wouldn't be able to validate that. So as we can see there, near miss, nearly hitting that little Tiguan in front of us there. Luckily, I think there was very good amount of timing with us alerting the driver that there was a problem and him being able to react. But that was the driver's point of view. So what do we say? We've got what the report is giving us and the G-force sensors of the physical event that took place. We've got the driver's story of what he said happened and why he had to have this harsh braking event. And then we have the truth. So, you know, it's I always get quite a good laugh or reaction from that video, because I think we've all heard the stories and there's all been these elaborate graphical images given to us about why certain things happened. The reality in this case was it was distracted driving. Driver was using his cell phone. Now, let's bring it back into the previous slide where we spoke about, I have too many drivers, it's too hard to coach them. I can't keep up with them. I can't take them off the road. I lose efficiency. What happened here that you aren't aware of is that the camera alerted the driver that there was a problem. It gave him a loud audible alert to let him know he was distracted, and in just enough time for him to look up and slam on brakes. We have got millions of videos exactly like this. And guys, we all do it. I bet you half this room did it on the way here this morning. You're sitting in the little yield, slip left, great time to check your phone, right? Look up, you see those red brake lights disappear from the car in front of you. Automatic, you hit that accelerator, you're going. Before you know it, you're in the back of that vehicle. So it is a common thing. Now, to be able to train everyone, to get them to change their behavior is difficult. So what do? In cab, we are alerting that driver. He is now also aware that there's an event being captured about his behavior. and that he's going to be coached on it, whether it's through a self-coaching module or a manager bringing him in if it exceeds a certain risk profile, we are going to correct that behavior. But that is the power of video supported or us supporting the telematics data that's available to give the true story. Because now we are able to have the power of prediction to understand that this driver has a problem with using phones. So some of us might ask the question, what prediction are we making here? The prediction that we're making is that this driver is going to cause a loss. Because the real question we have to ask ourselves is what would have happened if that camera beep didn't go off? Okay, so yeah, it's the guy was traveling 16 or 18 kilometers an hour. So hopefully there's no one injured, no major fatalities or anything like that. But there would have been a huge loss of operation. Firstly, that vehicle would have had to stay there to let's phone the boss, tell him the story, get the recovery unit out. Hopefully I don't have 150,000 rands worth of stock in the back that someone, and hopefully this hasn't happened in a bad area where guys are going to come storm the road and take all my stock out the back. Secondly, if that engine was damaged and that vehicle is going to need to go to repairs anyway, but if it's a radiator or something serious, you have lost a whole vehicle on your routes and your efficiency is gone. So that ability or that power to predict is from the sense that we want to be able to make sure that we are looking at the risks and getting to a point where the drivers that need attention are getting attention. And we're not overloaded with reports coming from telematics that are taken out of context and unable to action those insights. And that's the power of Optics and Ctrack together. So the power to predict and the insights to protect, whether it's reducing collisions, improving driver behavior, or cutting costs. The Ctrack Optics solution gives you the tools to take control, to stay compliant, and to protect what matters most, which is your people. Because if the drivers are arriving at their destination safely, that means there was no damage to vehicles, it means products are being delivered, and we are getting revenue. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Bradley. Another great presentation. Ladies and gents, I'm just linking myself up here again.
Hearing that Springbok dropkick happen on the radio is not the same as seeing the ball flying through the air. The same is true for your fleet. With Ctrack's advanced platform and the cutting-edge cameras from Optics, you will have live video footage so that you too can get the whole story. With our integrated solutions, you will optimize fuel consumption, reduce insurance premiums, and document any incidents in detail. Gain real-time insights into operations with Ctrack and Optics to elevate your fleet to the next level. See everything, control everything, achieve more.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Ladies and gents, this is interesting. Talking about the movement of animals. My late father-in-law was a Namibian person, and those days when he was in business, they would travel from Tsumeb to Windhoek in one day for business, and that's about 1,000 kilometers. Eindhoven to come and go into business. And but he taught me something that you might find interesting. He said to me, "Why do you think an animal will jump towards your car at night?" I thought about it. Why would the animal jump towards your car? Because he gets frightened for his own shadow, which is moving because of your lights shining on him. So his shadow is moving. So he gets frightened for his own shadows. He jumps away from his shadow in the direction of your car. Interesting, isn't it? All right, it always made me think. Ladies and gents, our next presenter then is Chantel van Heerden. and she's the Sales Manager Alliance of Ctrack, looking at efficiency, how partner and market data drive smarter, more efficient decision making. Thank you, Chantal.
Morning, everyone. So I think they saved the best for last, and don't worry, it won't be that long. Glad that you can join us today, and we're going to be chatting very quickly and briefly about efficiency. I think I'm a passionate person about efficiency because I like being efficient with my time, our partner's time. I'm a bit of a problem solver, so naturally we get excited about being efficient, because that's the way to identify or eliminate bottlenecks, removing unnecessary steps, and obviously at the end of the day, keeping us efficient. So let's have a look at what we can do. It's a quick brief overview, what I'm going to touch on. What does it mean to us? How efficiency works with us and who our alliance partners are? And what do we do as Ctrack as a partner? And how efficiency affects our partners? So as you would have heard today, we've mentioned this multiple times, but data to enable the power to predict, and what it means for us, it means that we're transforming raw information into actionable insights, allowing us partners to see what's coming before the issues arise and stay ahead of the curve. It's pretty much what it's about. What efficiency means to us and why it matters, it's a very important topic. And for us as business partners, business owners, fleet operators, or fleet managers, efficiency means maximizing the output by minimizing the waste. And what waste that is? Anything from time, fuel, resources, missing out on new opportunities, having more risks. So it's about achieving better results with fewer disruptions and reducing the cost and having greater control. So in today's competitive and unpredictable world, efficiency is pretty much the edge. And it's built on one foundation, and that's data. This is just a quick overview of some of our alliance partners that we currently work with, and a mixture of different segments and industries that we're proud to be sharing our data and them sharing their data with us. Our role as a partner, Ctrack's role as a partner with our business partners in today's fast-paced world, in today's fast-paced world, data is no longer just about tracking. It's about anticipating, forecasting, and guiding action. This predictive intelligence empowers efficiency, agility, and informed decision-making for both us and our partners. At Ctrack, we work closely with partners to turn these insights into action. So meaning helping them improve operational efficiency, reduce the costs, and gaining that competitive edge. We enable our partners to move from a reactive model or a reactive position to a proactive and a predictive one. That means that we can see the problems before they occur and make the decisions that are data-driven, efficient, and sustainable. A little bit more about how we are a role and play a role in this partnership with the data. We believe that the true power of data lies in the ability to predict and not just reflect. Like I mentioned, we knowing what's coming. It's not about just seeing what's happened, but obviously advising what's likely to happen. Like Brad mentioned with the camera, what's likely to take place, what accident is going to happen, and what to change and what to implement and how to react in time. So with the right insights, we can proactively address these risks, optimize the performance, and streamline operations. Lastly, just quickly, data becomes our trusted advisor in this process, helping us decide where to focus, how to act, and how to stay one step ahead in this ever-evolving environment. A little bit about efficiency and how we're providing that to our partners currently. Predictive maintenance reduces downtime. So by analyzing the vehicle data, the health data of the vehicle, we can then forecast service needs before the breakdowns happen. That means that you're minimizing unplanned downtime, extending the asset life, and then you've got lower maintenance costs. Another option or an example would be driver behavior risk, driver behavior insights, which reduces risk. So using the data to identify the trends in speeding, harsh braking, and fatigue, we're predicting and correcting high risk behavior informs ability and safety to reduce accidents. So lower insurance and downtime costs. Another one would be smarter route planning improves the productivity. So real-time traffic delivery and usage data allows us for optimized routing. This means that we can do quicker deliveries, more deliveries, better fuel efficiency, and fewer wasted kilometers. A few more would be asset utilization forecasting. And we help partners understand which vehicles or even other assets are underperforming or underutilized so that they are able to use these insights and they can either rebalance workloads, reduce fleet costs, reduce fleet sizes, and reinvest their time and money more wisely. Last one that I would like to reflect on is revenue prediction and theft prediction. Using movement alerts, location history, and behavior data, sort of what Craig mentioned on earlier, we can predict unusual activity. And with this, we can enhance security and safety, and we can enable faster response to problematic theft situations or vehicle recoveries. So in closing, with data, we stop reacting to problems. We start designing smarter systems that prevent them. So predictive data is the new fuel of operational efficiency, and efficiency then becomes sustainable, measurable, and also scalable. So at Ctrack, we don't just provide the data, we're proud to provide the fuel to our partners across every single industry and segment. And we turn the data into clear direction that helps our partners know exactly what to do more with less, and obviously a lot faster. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chantel, for putting us in control. And with the help of Ctrack and Crystal and the beautiful products, we're really privileged being involved. Ladies and gents, we're just bringing up our program. I know that some of you might be concerned about the lucky draws and how much God is going to get in the box and so on. What we're going to do just before the draw, we've got a box here, so there's a draw here at the front. We will send the box around and you'll be given an opportunity to put your cards in the box. So we'll take care of that one. All right, so ladies and gents, we came to the end of the presentations, great presentations and great products. And now it's time to ask questions. And I would like to do a little panel discussion. We've left open a little area there. So we'd like to put a few chairs there, and those of the panelists who are still here and brave enough would kindly then come and take up some seats here at the front. And we will start up the mobile camera. So how it's going to work is the panelists will sit here at the front. I will move around with a microphone and a camera. So when you want to ask a question, you put up your hand, I'll approach you with the camera and the microphone. You'll ask your question, but please keep it short. Please don't do a speech. Ask a short question directed to one member of the panel or the panel as a whole, and we'll take, say, 2 or 3 questions. Then we'll give the panelists opportunity to answer. The online people, you will also be given opportunity to ask questions. So after the first round of in-person questions, we'll then ask whoever is online, if they want to ask a question, we'll give them opportunity. So that's the game. So I need some guys just to help me to put, say, 4 or 5 chairs. I don't know how many panelists are still available. So if they can kindly come to the front and we can see who will act as panelists for us, please. Thank you very much. 1, 2, there we go. All right, Jan, just a camera check on this one, please. Yes, thank you. Can I have a hand for the first question for the panel? And not everybody at once, please. No question. Is that possible? They're all stunned by the content and convinced. Remember, panelists, I'm going to request some closing remarks from you guys. All right. So even if I have no questions, I'm going to ask closing remarks. All right. Is there anybody online who would like to unmute and ask a question? Okay, maybe I can ask Ctrack a question. I want to enroll for the Freight Logistics Index. Is there any prerequisites? How does it work?
No, there isn't.
On the mic, please. So everybody can.
No, there isn't.
If you want to know more, there's Nick. No, but there isn't any prerequisites. And Nick has our details, so we can share that with you later today.
Thank you for that one. Still waiting. Questions might come up. There, Eugene. Thank you, Eugene, for bailing me out here. Please identify yourself.
Thanks, Harry. It's Eugene from MasterDrive. Been familiar with most of the systems out there. Can you just unpack a little bit further? Because I've heard the statement that predictive analytics is just statistical data. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit more for the benefit of the audience? Because I think people walk away from a seminar such as this a little bit confused. And if they could understand the full power of that, it would make a world of difference in their lives.
Thank you, Eugene. Panel can.
Sure, I'll take this one. I think the legacy BI reports that we'll have, that is available out there and most people are using, is just statistical data. Whereas we are trying to build models, AI models, which we feed data through, and it will predict the fuel efficiency, for instance, of the trip. So we are building AI models that we feed data through, and that you can see as it can be static data after it went through the model, but it has to, as it's going through the AI model, it becomes way more. And then there lies the power to predict. So with our fuel usage model, if you give us any trip, we feed it through this model, and then we can tell you, was this trip, the fuel use of this trip, was it related to driver behavior, or was it related to the mass, etc.?
I would also just like to add from a partner's perspective, everyone's data and the relevance to them is different. So it's identifying what is relevant to you and your segment or your business or your operation, and picking up the trends and the risks or the analysis of those trends and risks in your division or your segment. So for example, bus operators are doing certain routes. Maybe those routes have been traveled for many years, but we've never used the data to compile, is there additional routes? Is there additional stops that we need to use? Is there different types of vehicles we need to use along those routes? In the FML industry, where we've got vehicles that are only allowed to travel a certain amount of kilometers every month, we've got all that data compiled on our back end, and we can tell you when those vehicles are nearing that threshold of kilometers, which vehicles should you use more, which should you use less. So I think from my understanding and how I'm passionate about it is to think in your environment, in your business, what is important for you? What do you want to achieve? How do you want to dream about achieving that? And then sitting with us and unpacking what data is available to use that to your benefit, to make you sustainable, to make you successful. That's a little bit from my side.
So working within the transport sector and for several years as well before coming back to Ctrack, you use statistical data of what will be a CPK for a vehicle, a Volvo versus a Merc versus a MAN. But obviously, like Christian's given is, what about the load? What about the driver? How's he driving it? Where is he driving it? Instead of just taking that, this is what the CPK is in this industry, that's what your CPK should be, and you should have 2 cents per kilometer on your trailer, etc. We're actually giving you the data from what is currently happening to give you that foresight of this is what is going to happen. I know a lot of the transporters also then speak to each other. What are you getting on your Merc? I'm getting a 2.1, you're getting a 2.2, but that's averages. It's not real life data of, but he's traveling up a hill, he's got 40 tons where he's actually only transporting 10 tons. You have to take all of that data together instead of using a statistic to say it should be 2.2, but it's the same as if you buy new passenger vehicles, you should get this type of fuel usage driving in a suburban area. But you drive a thing and using it to load all your tools and everything else into it, are you going to get what the statistics say, how they actually tested it versus the real life data to show you what's happening right now?
Thank you, panel. I think I saw another question here. Who was it? Behind me. Here we go.
Thanks, Harry. I'm not going to say a speech, but I'm going to try and give context to it. I think Chantal mentioned something like, yeah, or Raven Shabe from the Johannesburg Roads Agency. Chantal mentioned something about smarter routes planning improves productivity. Can we add safety into it? Can we add other things like fuel efficiency as well? But my biggest gripe, and this is where Sanral, my colleagues in Sanral, and as well as the Gauteng Province of Roads and Transport would agree with me. Do we know how many trucks hit bridges because of height restrictions, as well as truckers that avoid the smarter route that you've planned for, but they end up diverting, for instance? So can you guys help us? I'm talking about optics and as well as Ctrack. Can you guys look into it? I can tell you now, the funding and the monies to repair those damaged bridges is dwindling. You are going to have crisis when it comes to infrastructure. The amount of potholes that you see on local roads, there is a direct correlation between those amount of potholes that are forming there, as well as trucks that are avoiding using main arterial roads and highways and diverting to local roads, because the standard of constructing a local road is not the same as what is used on the national roads. Please help us, because we're going to get to the stage where we cannot afford to maintain the roads because of the rapid deterioration of these roads due to truckers using roads that are not smarter and are not dedicated according to your plan. And ultimately, that helps you with fuel efficiency as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I respond?
Thank you. Yes, and we briefly had a conversation earlier. I'd like to touch on some of our technology that we use in Crystal, and we refer to it as a smile script. And what it basically does is it informs our vehicle or our asset via different non-human interaction. It gives it rules and algorithms to implement or process an action. So for example, your bridges, we've actually identified that, and I'm sure you recall, I think it was 2 years ago when we had an incident in Boksburg and a tanker hit a low-lying bridge, and it was explosions and there was a lot of fatalities and aftermath from that. So what we've done on our Crystal software, we've implemented rules that allow a vehicle traveling on that route to be notified of the risk. So the parameters of the truck or the tanker is taken into consideration. Those rules are then put in our back end, and the algorithm is sent to the tracking unit or the telematics unit in the vehicle. And it starts alerting the driver when he's on this route, telling him via buzzer or a light in the truck that he's on a route and he's going to go under a bridge that he's not going to fit under. And if that driver consistently ignores that alert or that warning, we then, even without human intervention, are able to immobilize that vehicle into limp mode to make sure that it cannot go under that bridge, to prevent that accident or those fatalities or the damage to the infrastructure. And that's one example how we do it, but we've got multiple examples where we help prevent and predict those incidents from happening. We've got it the same with the PTO switches on our tipping. If you want to tip coal or cargo, any different types of commodities outside of a geo zone, it limits that. We've even helped customers that transport fresh milk from the farms to limit their speed on a dirt road that has multiple corrugations or potholes, to ensure that that milk, funny enough, is kept in the correct, I don't know what you call it, substance or levels, that it doesn't split before it gets to its destination. So we govern the vehicles in that route on that piece of road to a maximum of 20 kilometers an hour or 30 kilometers an hour to prevent the loss of that cargo. Another issue we didn't actually show you today, but there's a theft one where we help prevent the theft or the stolen vehicle. And what happens is, when inside the vehicle we pick up jamming or we pick up any interference with the signal, our units are able to pick up those parameters and alert the driver. We put on the hazards of the vehicle, put on the hooter, and that's without human intervention. And if that jamming persists within that vehicle and in the presence of that vehicle, we're able to immobilize the vehicle and in a safe situation, so that they can still turn, brake, and stop next to the road. But we limit that vehicle from getting away, giving us more time to respond, making sure that the cargo isn't stolen, just enhancing the safety. So there's various options and techniques and solutions that we've implemented into our Crystal software that can definitely help you with that.
So I'm going to go back to where I obviously worked within the transport sector, and you will see a lot of the guys. So obviously, Sanrail, you've got toll gates up at the national highways, etc. And that's where I know the guys don't want to go with fuel cards, etc. But when they give the drivers cash for a toll gate, he will go off his route. He will avoid that and actually cause the potholes, etc., which costs obviously the transporter more, because the guys actually had it where, when we took over for a specific company, they're supposed to drive directly on the N4, and just before they get to Middelburg, before the toll gate, take the detour and adding additional 20 kilometers to the route, but the driver's pocketing that money. And it's obviously with that type of data that we can also help them on our Vantage that we've partnered with as well, to give that this is your set route that you should drive, and it's your planned versus actual, and where it actually alerts immediately as he goes off that route. As well as you'd have the guys that are not roadworthy. And obviously we've seen what some of the trucks look like on the South African roads, but that's also an enforcement somewhere else to say, but those guys are using those routes because law enforcement is actually only on your national routes. They're not taking all those side routes. They're not taking all those back routes. And obviously maybe having, I know with these partnerships with SAP and like the safer cities and those cameras to actually trigger and give those type of things of where are the vehicles coming from there, why are they transporting there. I know in Leidenburg, for instance, there's an area, and that town has obviously stopped any heavy commercial vehicles coming through due to incidents. If you look at Pretoria CBD, where they restrict and vehicles need to go to the left and don't come straight through, it's obviously with law enforcement and obviously some factors within the road traffic management that how are we going to get it done that way, and obviously with the drivers, and what are you checking on your drivers, where they're going, why are they detouring, and actually help them to do that. But yes, we can do those things and help the transporters to also see that and identify that as well.
Thank you, panel. There's a question from one of our online people, Dr. Beverly War. She's asking, is there data or trend communication with law enforcement? For example, do they pick up data and trends with animals on the road, collisions, frequencies, etc.? For example, on the N2 near Cape Town International Airport. Do they pick up data and trends with animals on the road, collisions, frequencies, etc.?
So once again, it's going to come down to partnership with RTMS, the law enforcement in that area, where we have done, and we've got partnerships with obviously national hijacking, with the guys that are actually picking up certain trends. I know that we're busy partnering with guys to do pothole detection in the Western Cape, because it's one of the things that they want to look at. So there is a whole range of those things. It's just to get those partnerships together instead of us all living in our own silos and keeping the information to ourselves, is to share the information. We've got no issue on sharing information and trends we pick up on our side. We share it with our customers share it with us as well. But to give it to the law enforcement, we can provide it. But it's once again, at the end of the day, what do they do with that data and are they going to react to it? It's the same as your Waze, your Google Maps. That's how they use it. It's from members of the public that are actually putting the details in there. Obviously, with the trends and the details that are coming through from the optic side, where they can show us certain data and trends that are coming through in these areas, we inform our customers. But it's once again, we can share it with the municipality, but are they actually going to do anything with the data? But we can.
Thank you, Craig. Any other question in the audience? There's one.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. My name is Francois. I'm from Fuel Solution. We're a bulk diesel supply company in South Africa with a couple of truck stops along the way in Mpumalanga, KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. My question is to Christian regarding the Crystal product that you mentioned. We spoke about the drivers and the different vehicles and the behavior of the drivers and the driving situations. But do you factor the quality of the diesel into the predictions as well?
No, we haven't looked at the quality of diesel. That's a very good point. I'm not sure even if we have the capability to measure that from our devices. But it's a very good point, and it goes on to my point of that the model is only as accurate as the variables that it counts for, and this might be a key variable as we field test this fuel efficiency model in the field to make sure that we account for all of these variables, including fuel usage or diesel type.
So just to add on to Christian's thing, and once again, going back to the transport side is, South Africa's got the dirtiest diesel in the world. But then you have a guy that's got his own Bowser that would have diesel, or the guys that run for Eskom, etc. They get preferential rates, but then they start watering down the diesel. You got that issue that will happen at your total garages that they've caught guys with that. And that's why fuel probes don't work within South Africa. As much as the guys want to say it works and you drill a hole in the tank and put all these probes, our fuel is too dirty. The way that we obviously water it down to try and get the maximum out of saving every rand, because that's one of the biggest costs to any transport is their fuel. And they try to water it down, and that's why you've got Eskom that actually goes to those transporters that get at the preferential rates and actually test that diesel, because the guys actually water it down, and obviously the dirt in our diesel and how we manufacture, which is why the stuff doesn't actually work with fuel probes.
All right, thank you very much for that. Another question in the audience last time. There's one that side.
Yeah, thanks. My name is Moses Rabotata from Rabi Consulting. I just wanted to check from Craig, because the introduction of technology, particularly that part of the hash braking and so forth, for the fact that, among other things, it touches on employees. I want to understand as to what is the extent of resistance, particularly when drivers are involved, because you are most likely to pick up resistance to change. And what is the extent of that, and how is it managed? Because, I mean, you can introduce that and you find that it's not working because there's resistance. So, yeah, what is the extent and how is it managed? Thanks.
I'm sure the guys from optics will touch on it as well. You will have resistance from the drivers because you've got your bargaining council, you invading my privacy and etc. It's the way that you implement the change. Don't force the change. Show them the benefit of what the change is to them, how it makes them safer, and obviously how you're protecting them on the road, and to obviously prove they're not guilty. Because the first thing that happens is you're a transport company. A lot of guys will target you to get an insurance claim. You broke my windscreen, your stone came off your truck and you damaged my aircon and you broke my sunroof, etc. And by giving that type of change, it helps the drivers directly on scene when there's an accident, especially a fatality. they're going to then arrest the driver. But if you've got that footage right there and the driver knows and you can see everything, and remember, part of the devices itself and the cameras and optics will give it to you as well, is they turn that audio off on the in-cab. You don't have to have it, and giving it the right way to the driver and showing them the benefits for them as well, and implementing benefits to the drivers or an incentive scheme that will also give them something. Like you have your highway heroes that takes everything into it, your telematics and your cameras and the behavior they have, whereas you see the driver behavior changing with the drivers. But don't just force it on, and there's a camera in there the next day, he climbs in the truck, you're going to have the guys striking. You're going to have the guys pushing back on it, covering the cameras, putting Vaseline, chappies, a sticker from a Pick and Pay or anything. They're going to use it, or a cap, the sun visor just the right side, getting a mirror to actually shine into it. I've seen it all working in the transport side. But if you implement the right change and don't just force it, give them the benefit as well, you'd actually have a positive change from that side.
Thanks, Craig. And yeah, you touched on all the correct points there. I think the big thing about our approach is we are a driver-centered company. Our slogan independently as Optics is getting you safely home. And a big part of that is trying to convince drivers that there is more benefit to having this technology in their vehicle than not. There's a couple of methods to do that, and we go, quite deep into different psychological traits and how to get the message across. But one of the ones that's always most effective is driver exoneration. We've had drivers where there's been an accident and there's been a fatality. In some instances, it's the driver with the device in their vehicle, and the aftermath of that for the people you leave behind can sometimes be absolutely terrifying. We had a driver who was accused of going through a red robot, and his family went into quite a lot of shaming because it was their driver or this lady's husband that had presumably caused the accident, only to review the video footage and see that it was actually the third party that went through that robot, and they were then responsible for the death of that driver, and now there could be some closure. So I think it's exactly as Craig said, it's about the approach. We also understand that with labor unions and everyone involved in drivers, we are actually here for the driver's protection. There are more times it's going to exonerate that driver, and the reality is we care about them. We are extremely passionate about drivers because we want to get them safely home. There is a side of that is very emotive, and we care, and we're all humans. But the reality is that driver getting safely home means that he can come back to work tomorrow, do his routes, earn his income, earn his salary, and the business can carry on. So it comes with both sides of the coin, and that's what we make the drivers realize. But as Craig mentioned, it's about implementation early on. Driver training and awareness is what we do before we even start sticking cameras on the windscreen.
Thank you for that. There's an online question. Let me read the question. It's from Dineo Kitabe. She's saying, in the road freight industry, we often face challenges in receiving timely alerts about disruptions, such as adverse weather, strikes, or load shedding, through a centralized platform. These disruptions can affect transit times and may even require cargo to be held over when exit routes are restricted. Does Ctrack has a channel to support this type of challenge?
So yes, we do. It actually runs within our bureau service that we have got, where it gives protest action, road closures, fires. We've actually even gotten to the extent of where we get crime scene details as well within smaller areas and roads. The national roads, where, for instance, let's take where they had that snow on the N3, that closures, we were able to then let our clients know beforehand and let them turn around. Yesterday or the day before, there was ATDF. It was claimed ATDF was protesting close to Warden, Harrismith. We turned our clients around and gave them the notifications to change that. When they had that protest action that was in Western Cape, we notified our customers and got them away from those areas before they even got there, because we actually in touch with a lot of law enforcement, security industries, guys that are actually out on the road, not just relying on our own telematics data. We actually tie in with a whole range of different guys within the industry, tying it together, and we actually push it out via a signal channel, a WhatsApp channel, an SMS, an email through to those customers, but obviously not flooding them with everything. We obviously understand that this transporter operates in these regions and only give them the details for them. So yes, we cover that within our bureau structure that we run on our side as well.
All right, thank you for that. Ladies and gents, let's move over to, there's no burning questions. Is there one? There's one. Oh, okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Muriel. I'm from Begilanga Logistic. I just want to know how do you solve the problem of hijacking on the road?
Thank you.
Well, to easily explain that, how do we solve the hijackings? Let the guys be employed. Let's start with the employment and the unemployment. That's part of the issue. You heard what the economist said, and that's part of the issue. If there's no jobs, the guys are going to look for funding somewhere else. And unfortunately, your goods and commodities are going to be his funding. It's like we always call in our industry a 5-finger discount, because he's using his hand to obviously hold the gun, and that's how he's getting his discount for the whole load. But to get that type of stuff, you will never ever prevent it. We will never guarantee 100% prevention, but we can obviously give you the insight and help you with that awareness, what to look for before you have that type of information. We had a company that also went and monitored routes. They then obviously had debriefs with drivers, and they were actually picking up that the drivers themselves were already placed in there 6 months before, and that's how they're ready to actually do the hijackings. It's planned within. It's also how do you, and I know in the transport side, a lot of guys will say, yes, you need to drive the truck. You've got the right license, PDRP, everything, you're good. Show me how you reverse. Okay, good, you can go. They don't do criminal checks. There's no checks on his finances and those type of things, because if he's in a bad debt situation, he's susceptible for that bribe. To get that extra 40, 50,000 Rand, and it was a handover, but they call it a hijacking. He's involved. We've seen guys hand over their keys and claim that he's been hijacked and put in the back of the vehicle. It's starting with obviously the economic side, but how do you vet your drivers before he gets onto that vehicle? You know, you're looking at a vehicle of 2.5 million. Some of the guys are transporting goods that are very high risk, and obviously, but we just put the first guy in there that we get. He can reverse the truck. We don't even check if his PDRP is actually valid. He has an accident, it's your side. It's the vetting with the drivers, because they also get involved. And obviously making sure that the guys stick to the national routes. They stick to the routes that they're supposed to. Instead of turning right, he turned left. We've done the reaction and we've recovered it where the driver he stole everything himself. And using that visibility of, you got a tracking device, there's jamming, but there's no camera to have the visibility inside. What is he doing beforehand? They've had the driver that actually had a guy hijacked in Durban. They drove all the way up to Jet Park, sticking to the exact same route. And when they got close to the warehouse itself, the guys stopped monitoring the tracking at their company, and they said, yes, he's at the warehouse. Meanwhile, it was jammed. They've taken the vehicle away. So it's the visibility of what you're looking at, how he's coming through, but fix the economy side, you're going to have a deterrent on that.
Indeed, thank you very much. Seems to me everybody comfortable now? Nobody online who wants to, there's a question there, okay. Great, we're having questions.
Greeting everyone. My name is Tobile Bengu. I'm actually a student at UNISA. I'm doing a BCom in Transport and Logistics. I want to find out from Ctrack if is there any recovery warranty that they offer in case of theft.
Is there any recovering warranty?
Okay, so I know exactly where that comes from. That's within the Ctrack industry, where they give you a guaranteed 150,000 Rand as the warranty. I just like to urge everybody to go and look at the terms and conditions of that use. If you're transporting passengers, it's not valid. If you don't do the checks within a certain time frame, if you don't report it within a certain time frame, there's a whole lot of terms and conditions within that's hidden away. Everybody looks at the 150,000 Rand. And when you get to the 150,000 Rand, you put in loopholes, etc. I've worked with that company directly at the previous transport company. I've worked within the industry. I've got friends within the transport industry, and everybody sees that 150,000 Rand, and that's a great guarantee. But nobody will ever guarantee you that if you don't get your vehicle back, nobody will have a 100% recovery rate. Nobody will give that to you without fine print and clauses within it. We will obviously guarantee you, we will do everything within our power to get your asset, your vehicle, your driver back, but also then allowing you to have the right products to prevent that from happening in the first place. Because the prevention is better than the cure itself, and we all want to react after the fact. But like I said, is we don't vet the drivers properly, and they're taking your freight away because we're not vetting properly. We're not fixing other elements. So yes, there's no definite guarantee, and no company will offer you 100% guarantee on a recovery. You'll also see that there's a lot of recovery rates that float around the market, and guys that belong to different associations, etc. But that guarantee of 150,000 Rand, no, Ctrack does not do that, but there's a lot of fine print and clauses within that. You'll look at your insurance industries, they'll force you to take a tracking device. Go and look back at your fine print. If you did not check that your tracking device was working, you did not notify your tracking company that has stopped reporting, they refute your claim, or they'll actually only pay you 50% out. There's a lot of fine print in a lot of those type of aspects.
Thank you, Craig. Yes, an online question again from Danaya Kitabe. Is Ctrack exploring the rail industry by analyzing trends in theft and other factors that may be hindering its development? The rail industry.
So Ctrack at the moment does actually have a customer or customers in the rail industry from a cargo perspective. But what we are finding is that with rail becoming more prominent and sort of competing in the road logistics, as we saw from the economy presentation this morning, that we actually now have a focus on developing products that are specific to that industry. So whilst we may have been, predominantly in the road transport industry in the past, we are actually involved in aviation. We're a global business. We've got customers that are in the aviation industry. We've got customers in agri. And we are seeing more and more the need to refine our products and services around these other verticals. So it's definitely on the horizon from a product development perspective.
Thank you, Anissa. Don't see any hands anymore. Nobody online want to unmute? Well, let's then start with closing remarks from our great panelists. Shall we start with Chantel? Thank you very much, Chantel. Closing remarks.
I think from my side in the partnership sector, we're passionate about your business and we want to understand what you want to achieve and what you want to dream to achieve. So come and meet with us. Let's build that dream. Let's implement that dream. Even if it's some things we haven't done, we're happy to upset the markets, upset the industry. We need to think out of the box and think differently about our approach. So if that's what you need and you want to meet with us, please, we're open to joining you on that venture.
Yeah, Chantel, Christian.
Continuing on Chantel's point, building these AI models requires a lot of client intervention and client participation to make sure that what we are predicting is actually correct. So we are also open to working with you if you have an idea as well, and you can see how the power to predict can help you and in certain areas of your business. Please approach us and we can try to help you and try to build these models with you in mind and make sure we have accounted for all the variables to make our models predict better.
Thank you, Christian. Craig.
So obviously one of the things is always try and stay in touch, lean off your fellow transporters, partner with the right company. And I know a lot of people within the transport sector and the industry, we price conscious, but when you look at that price of what is actually there and the solution that's put on the table versus the loss of income you would have, and obviously losing one of your top clients because you didn't have the right solutions at the right time, at the end cost you. So penny wise, pound foolish, but obviously it all comes at the right cost for the right solution, not just getting outpriced in what you could lose at the end of the day.
Thank you, Craig. Bradley.
Thanks. I think I'll close off just with something that hit us when the partnership originally kicked off, and that was that Optics was the leader in video telematics and Ctrack was the leader in telematics, and a lot of our clients had these systems. And the challenge then became, okay, I don't want to log onto two systems because we're talking about efficiency now and we want to make everything better. So I think that's what put Ctrack and Optics in a perfect position, is that due to us realizing that we're both specialists in what we do and combining that into a single platform to make our clients' lives easier is why we're always going to be leading the pack. So thank you very much.
Indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give the panel a big hand. From the transport side, I would like to thank everybody for supporting and being here, driving all the way, and supporting the Transport Forum also for more than 18 years. And in fact, Ctrack doing that from the very beginning. What a great organization. And I think I couldn't ask somebody else than Anissa to do the closing remarks for us and closing the event. Thank you very much, Anissa. You can stand at the podium.
For the opportunity to actually be part of such wonderful discussions. I think for me, the key takeaway from this is having these creative minds in one room where we ask the right questions. We are passionate about our respective businesses. We want to drive efficiencies, and we all recognize the need to use technology in order to do that. My panelists have been fantastic. They've stolen every single thing that I wanted to close off with. But I think the common theme amongst all of us here at Ctrack and Optics as well is that data really is the new currency. And if I can perhaps say, if you look at a computer screen or a TV screen where it's made up of millions of pixels, those pixels would be the data, if I can make a comparison. And using data, translating it into information that is useful is then that beautiful picture you see on that computer screen or on that television screen. So thank you so much for being here today, for being part of the discussions, for being engaging. And we look forward to having more discussions with yourselves through the Transport Forum as well as on a one-on-one basis. And please do enjoy the lunch and enjoy the rest of the afternoon networking. Harry, thank you again.
Thank you very much, Ctrack and Anissa. I would also want to give recognition to Nicholas and Sherry for making this event successful, helping us a lot, all the arrangements and support. So thank you very much for the staff at Ctrack and others. Thank you very much. Guys, enjoy lunch. We're going to do now the lucky draws and so on. So Jan, we can say goodbye to the online audience. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. It was great having you with us. And we hopefully see you again soon. The next Transport Forum will be a virtual event, the 19th of June. But we're saying goodbye to the online people. Thank you very much.